An old high school friend, Ann, on Facebook, messaged me and said, I did some podcasts and we went to a studio. It's very expensive, and I'm thinking maybe I should just buy my own equipment, but I have no idea what to buy, and I know you have an opinion, so what do you think? And I was going to send her some various sites, and then I thought, you know what? Let me just make a video. This would be a good excuse to make a video about what I've learned about microphones. And hopefully I'm right in everything I'm saying, but this is my experience. But I know you're not going to want to watch a long video about microphones, or me, so I'm going to try and keep it, put all the important stuff up front so you can quit as soon as possible. If you're doing a podcast, or actually in anything, recording with a dynamic microphone this close to your mouth is going to get you the best quality possible for your voice. This mic is $20 on Amazon. It's all you need. Again, it's a dynamic microphone. So if you can do a podcast and everybody in your podcast can be disciplined, then this is the mic you want to do. Now you may notice I'm not actually speaking in this mic for this video. I'm using a different mic. What mic am I using? Well, it's right out of the frame here. It's this microphone, and that's a condenser microphone. And the great thing about condenser microphones is I don't need to talk just a few inches into them. I can actually put them a few feet away and they record just fine. But they have one huge problem. They need power. And the power is to make them more sensitive. And that means that it's the further away you go from your mouth, right, the more you can pick up. You might pick up the refrigerator or a car or just general room noise. So you get all these freaking problems that you don't have when you're speaking a few inches into your $20 dynamic microphone. So, if you have because of all these various problems, there are all kinds of microphones. So there are little lavaliers that will go onto your chest. That can solve the problem of keeping the mic out of the frame, or you're being able to move around, I should say. Then you have like mini booms. You have even bigger booms for if it's 10 feet away. You have really professional XLR booms, right? Am I missing any mics here? Oh, you have this little voice polycom type thing. So there are tons of microphones. But again, let me boil it down to you. If you're going to do a podcast, my recommendation, my experience, is you get a cheap $20 dynamic microphone. You tell everybody they must speak within a few inches of the head. You give everybody headphones so they can hear what it sounds like when they start drifting away and doing this kind of stuff, like how it ruins the podcast. And recording to computers is difficult. I'm going to get into this later in this video if you want to keep watching. But for now, I say if you want to do more than two people, you go get one of these, something like this. Now, this is an audio recorder that's sort of meant to work with DSLRs like video, but it's great for podcasts. And they're very cheap. Well, relatively. It's like $200. And you can plug in 3 microphones. One here, one here, one here, one here. 4 microphones, and each one has a little level. So as people talk, some people talk softer, some people talk louder. You just set the level so that everybody's sort of equal. You hit record, and you will get a podcast, I believe, rivaling any studio. Again, so let's say you're doing 4 people. It would be 4 of these microphones, $80, plus this is like $200. That's $300. Maybe some stands for another $100 and stuff. So $400, and you can do professional podcasts until the cows come home. And now on to the more details about microphones. Okay, as I said, you'd want to start with these $20 microphones. Again, they work great. That's what I did. And I thought, I'll get the more expensive microphones as we go on, but these were always good enough. So I never got the more expensive microphones. Well, I got one, that Shure SM7B for $400. And I used it once, and it's just never worth the bother, so I just sold it. So anyway, you start with these microphones. Now the question is what to record on. Now, when I was recording back then, a couple of years ago, I was using this, and it worked great because I had my 4 levels. But a bad thing about it is I had to put a line into another little box that would do the 4 headphones. Everybody could adjust their volumes. And the other thing is the USB won't send a signal to the computer to record right away. Now, I didn't need that, but it would have been nice to have. So again, this worked great. It will still work great. So if you can see one of these used, I would pick it up, do everything you need to do. However, I was looking on B&H, and I now see there's equipment that that I think if I was going to do podcasts today, if my family said, oh yeah, we really want to get into it again, I'd probably sell some of the stuff and go get this. So I'm going to show you what that is. Okay, so this is the Rode Podcaster Pro Integrated Podcast Production Studio. And what I like about it is it, let me just go here, is it has all these different levels for each microphone. So you can set the level for each microphone. And then it also has levels for each of the headphones. So it takes care of both the levels for each of the 4 mics and each of the 4 headphones. The other thing that's nice about it is that it has inputs for all the headphones. So you have your 4 microphone inputs, and then you have your 4 headphone inputs. And that's very convenient. Okay, so now let me just scroll down here. What's really cool about this thing, we'll go into it, and apparently the firmware is just coming out now. Sorry, I meant to get the arrow. All right, there we go. See, it's the 4 meg tracks only into the USB. So what that means is that, sorry, I'm still learning this this OBS studio stuff. Let me erase all this. I'm back. Okay, so yes, learning this technology is never ending. So with that, with the ability of the Rode to send a signal to USB to the computer, it takes care of this thing. Now, this is what I used sometimes to record. So either I'd record directly onto this thing, which is just really simple. This is what I'd use all the time. So this is so simple. You plug the 4 mics in, the headphones, whatever. It goes to a card, and then I take the card to the computer to edit it. This thing allows me to put, I think, 4 to 8 separate mics right into the computer. Because getting actually more than 2 channels into a computer is very challenging. I'll go into that later. But anyway, this would allow me to get 4 separate channels into the computer. So that Rode thing would actually combine this and this. Though not perfectly, because the Rode will only do 2 channels. No, it says it's going to do 4 channels with the firmware update. Okay, so like I said, so that the Rode would take care of these 2 boxes. You know, if I was doing it today, these 2 boxes plus that little microphone box. It's right now in my daughter Thelma's room under a pile of stuff. So yeah. So if you can get into podcasting with more than 2 people, just pay the $600 for that thing, and then $20 per microphone, and you will get studio quality. I'd imagine it would pay for itself in a couple of podcast sessions versus studio time. Okay, this is the Joe Rogan show. It's one of the most listened to podcasts. This guy has all the money he needs to get any microphone he needs, any equipment, and I just want to show you something. Look how close his mouth is to the microphone, right? It's a few inches. Look how close his mouth is to the microphone. It's just a few inches. Would he really want it to be a few inches? I don't think so. I think he'd rather, you know, maybe sit over here, right, or go over there. Like, why would he want to have to be 6 inches from the microphone? The reason we will get into very quickly. So the first microphone I used was a dynamic microphone. And dynamic microphones work great if you're holding them this close to your mouth. But in the beginning, I didn't really know that, so often I would talk like this because I don't want it right up in my mouth. And then I would bring it into my software, and I try and boost the level to get it to be sounding good, and it was really noisy and horrible. And you know, I tried all different types of settings, and I could just never figure it out because I didn't understand a very simple thing. These microphones, dynamic microphones, work by converting your sound energy into electrical energy. And if it's this far away, there isn't enough sound energy to convert to electrical energy, so the computer really have to struggle to bring up that signal to be usable. So these mics always have to be like that. That's the basic, the bottom line. Nobody told me. If you're going to use a dynamic mic, it has to be like this. End of story. But of course, you know, we're in many situations where we don't want that. We want the mic to be a little bit further away from us so we can do whatever. So instead of a dynamic mic, we use a condenser mic, which is what this thing is. But condenser mics work great because they're very sensitive, and you can go further away from them. They make them into shotgun versions, which can be even like 5 or 10 feet, and you could adjust the sensitivity, and they're fantastic. So you might say, well, why doesn't just everybody use a condenser microphone? Because I'll tell you, condenser microphones have a very serious evil attached to them, and that evil is called power. Oops, sorry, mic is almost rolling off the desk. You need either one of these or one of these with a condenser microphone. Either you need to plug something in, and you know what a pain in the ass that is, to find an outlet or the cord's long enough or whatever, or you need a battery, which always run out at the worst possible time, right? I can never remember, is it a new battery, is it an old battery, do I have any batteries? It's just, yes, condenser mics are great. It's what everybody would use, but they require power. And power is a pain. If only they had little nuclear reactors that ran for 100 years, you never have to worry about it. However, again, with a condenser mic, you're free to move around. But if you're just doing a podcast, then a dynamic mic is fine because you're not going to see it. Everybody just talks, within an inch to the mic, and everything is going to be, perfect. I mean, the $20 dynamic microphone, to me, I cannot hear the difference between this mic and a $400 dynamic microphone or any of these super expensive microphones for basic podcasts. I just can't. They just sound great. But there are some other problems with them, but we'll get into that later. Okay, so to recap, if you're going to do a podcast or anything where you don't care if somebody sees that you have the microphone like this, use a dynamic microphone. They're very inexpensive. They work really well. They don't require power. See, this one has no on-off switch. Why doesn't it have an on-off switch? It doesn't need an on-off switch. It's always on. Actually, when you see an on-off switch on a dynamic microphone, it's really sort of like, fake in a way because it's always on. This, however, if you don't have this or this running into it, it does not work. That's not a pain in the butt about it. Okay, time to sum up. If you're going to do a podcast, you use a dynamic microphone. Always remember the two types of microphones, just two basic types. Dynamic, which uses the power of your voice to create an electrical current that if you have a good amplifier at the other end, will provide probably as good a recording your voice as you can get. Or there's a condenser mic like this that is more sensitive that you can put farther away from your face. However, it will require power. Let me see if I can show you this. So connected to this mic, see, this is the XLR cable, is this little adapter. And you can probably see here there's a switch that says power. And I have to hit that switch to give it like 48 volts of phantom power, what they call phantom power, so it'll actually work. If I switch this off, it won't work. So they're very dangerous mics in a sense in that you got to make sure they have power or they don't work. And then you can set up the other stuff, and this goes in USB into the computer. Again, I'm using this mic because I'm doing a video. I want it to be farther away from me, and I don't want it in the frame. But if I didn't care, I would just use this. It's much simpler. The second thing, if you can do a podcast, is you want something to record. Now, if it's just two people, there are a lot of very inexpensive solutions to that. You could probably just talk right into your cell phone. I would just probably do that. But if you ever think you can get 3 or 4 people, you really just have to go into this other class. But I found that even if you have 6 people or 7 people, if you have 4 people, there will be 2 people that are, 3 people that be really into it, and then the 4th is like sort of, so they can share their microphone. And then if you can record that way, you just buy an audio recorder where you can put 4 mics into it, and you record onto an SD card, and then you just put that in your computer. So that's what I've learned about my experience with podcasting, and I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.